As business owners, one of the most important things to us is our brand, right? It's an extension of who we are. We spend a lifetime in our business of developing our brand, maintaining our brand, improving our brand. Our overall brand strategy is so important, and it's a constant review to improve upon it. So when people think about you and your company, your brand is a positive experience, right? But there's one area of the brand strategy that doesn't get a lot of attention, or any attention for a matter of fact, that I think is something that we should really concentrate on and talk about. Hi, everybody. Again, welcome back to our podcast, Ins and Outs of Selling a Business. My name is Keith D, President, Osage Advisors. The brand strategy, or part of brand strategy I'm speaking about, is your executive and or employee branding that we don't really pay attention to, but it's critical to your business. And we're really excited to have with us today Alyssa Gelbard of Point Road Group. You're the founder CEO, and you are the expert on employee executive branding. And thanks for being with us. How are you today?
Great to see you, Keith.
Well, look, maybe for our audience, you can talk a little bit about what is employee branding, because no one really thinks about it. And I'd love to hear your perspective on it.
Exactly. No one thinks about it, and they really should, because it can have such a big impact on their business. So, employee branding is how your people represent and promote the company brand to stakeholders in everything they do every day, all day long. It's what they're doing online and in person. So, things like how they introduce themselves and talk about themselves and the business. It's their LinkedIn presence and other social media. It's their communications habits, like response time to emails, their presentation skills. It's how they show up every day, whether it's here, on screen or in person, how they present themselves physically, and their executive presence too. And when you consider all of these things together, it's, do they align with your company brand, right? So how do their actions and behaviors reflect your mission and vision and values? And if not, they really should. And I guess the question is, okay, so that's what employee branding is. So that sounds nice, right?
Right.
At least that sounds great. So what's the big deal? Why does it matter? Because what people don't realize, and I say this to business owners all the time, is consider how many opportunities you may lose every day because you're not paying attention to how your people are coming across. And either you don't realize the impact or it's not a priority. But the reason why I say that is considering all these interactions, right, that people have, that can influence someone's interest in doing business with you, in referring business, in staying a customer, or working at your company. And all of those things impact revenue.
Yeah, I mean, we invest a lot of, you know, money, time, effort in a brand, right? And the last thing you want to do as a business owner, and I think everybody who has gotten the phone call from a customer, say, hey, you know what? I really, I don't feel comfortable working with this person at your firm, right? And it could be a significant account, right? And you're like, and you're saying to yourself, why is that happening? I mean, and so what your immediate reaction is to bring them in and say, okay, you're not working out, and put somebody else on it and try to patch it up, right? So from your perspective, you know, from so the branding strategy is also about buying into the company culture, right? About what you're doing, the whole thing. So how does that work with you when you like? So you get a client that says, I need help. I mean, how does that kind of factor in to some of these things about, am my people an extension of me, so to speak, or extension of the firm? Not me, but the culture of the firm I'm trying to create.
Yeah, well, I think actually you make a really good point to take a step back for a second. It's not just you said a fraction of me, but my firm, leaders, business owners, leadership team, you set the example for everybody else. So they're looking to you. So one of the things when you talk about culture, we always say to our clients is we look at the top first. What example are you setting for everybody? If, let's say you have that culture of non-response, right, where it takes, unless it's the big, sharp, shiny customer, that you're going to respond like this to them. But if it's someone smaller, maybe you'll take some time, right? If you do that, then you're setting the example for everybody else. If you, for example, you haven't looked at your LinkedIn profile in years and years and years, and it's pretty weak, well, then you can't expect your team to look great, look and sound great on LinkedIn either. And by the way, people are looking your people up every single day, you and everybody else every day. But things like that. So it starts at the top. And when we work with clients, we always start at the top and say we have to make sure that the leadership team looks and sounds really terrific first, because you are building the culture for your people and setting an example.
And so, when I was looking at your website the other day, I saw you have this employee branding audit checklist. And, I honestly, I've been around for a while. That's the first time I've ever actually seen something like that. How did you develop that? Because that's probably it's probably the baseline or the foundation to start looking at each executive employees and where you can add value to help them with the overall branding strategy.
Sure, sure. So we created that because, for anybody, awareness is the most important thing first, right? When you have a problem, it's okay, what am I doing? What's the problem here? And so this shines a light on some of the most important areas that people need to pay attention to. And we developed it because we found that whenever we would we'll look at a company, look at a prospect, and even a client, these were the areas that we were always focusing on first. And so we said, well, let's help everybody out and say, look at these yourself. If you go through these areas and you realize that some you might be doing great and some you never even thought about, and then you take that step back and go, oh, maybe we should pay attention to this. And by the way, at the end of the day, the stuff is not rocket science, right? And this is
Right.
we're not talking about like, $100,000 investment here to fix these things, but they're worth spending time. And if you don't have the resource internally to look externally, because they can make such a big difference. But the audit shines a light on the most important areas that you should be paying attention to as a business owner.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's nothing more important. And I mean, if I look back and I sit back myself and other owners who are watching today or listening in, is like, what would you say would be, the key things that help a company help improve their employee executive branding strategy? Or even some may not even have one right now, honestly. I mean, it's
Probably, I would venture a guess, most people listening don't. And that's part of what we're here to do is, create awareness for it too. So I think from a starting point is before you actually look at your people part of everything, you want to look at your brand itself, your company brand, and say, two basic areas. One is that kind of overall description, because you want to look at that foundation of the brand and make sure then, okay, now that people are going to be more aware and maybe amplify it better, and be better brand, we call them ambassadors and advocates. Let's make sure that they're amplifying, the brand in the best way possible. So when you look at that kind of company description that you have, whether it's on your website or sales materials or LinkedIn, anywhere, is that the most current description of your business? Does that talk to the problems that you solve, your products or services, the type of customers that you're reaching, really making sure that it's current? Very often when I ask a business owner, when was the last time you looked at that? And you kind of get I'm not sure. Well, who updated it? Either I did or someone else did. It's
right.
that's a foundation. And then also making sure that your company has an updated LinkedIn presence, because that's where people are going to look. So if they're looking up somebody else, looking up someone, they're going to ultimately, if they don't know about your business, they're going to click through and learn a little bit, even if it's just 30 seconds about your business. So those are worth some time. So kind of lay that foundation. And then you want to start looking at the people side. Again, you first. Look at how you're coming across every day. Look at your bio, your LinkedIn presence, but very importantly, how you introduce yourself. One of the things I ask business owners all the time is I'll say, hey, if we get like 3, 4 people from the company sitting around the table and I say to each one, describe the business, am I going to get 3 or 4 different answers? And, I get the look like that sheepish look. Yes. Well, let's fix that because that how you introduce yourself can have such a big impact. If you miss, and it could just be something so subtle, like missing one of your products or services or verticals that you reach, or that you work with, that can really impact an opportunity because if it doesn't resonate with me as a prospective customer or as a referral source or even as potential talent, right? Then you may lose an opportunity right then and there. So looking at things, so laying that ground foundation, how you're introducing yourself, talking about the business, your LinkedIn presence, corporate bios for leadership teams.
Mhm.
We're talking about people who are thinking about selling your business at some point in the very near future or in the not so distant future, right? People are looking at people, right? They're looking at your leadership, they're looking at you, they're looking at your leadership team. So it's really important to make sure that it's that passive that when people are looking you up, that they're getting a great impression. But then after that, once they're engaging with you, so once we do kind of that brand foundational work and looking at how leadership and how people are coming across, then it's communication is such an important part. What are the communication habits? And not just of leadership, but let's say you have sales and business development, engineering and client delivery and customer service and all of the different areas, finance. Anybody who's touching someone outside, how are they coming across? What are their communications habits? That's a really, really important piece, that response time that I mentioned.
Right.
Also from even presentation skills, do people, you know, aside from maybe some of your top sales folks, does everybody read from slides? One thing we see very often is, you have a couple great sales folks, but then they bring in people from other areas of the business during a meeting. And how are those people coming across?
Yeah.
Because that can make or break an opportunity.
So you said perception has everything to do with it, right? I mean, I kind of, and listening to you, I kind of equated to, some of my experiences. I can walk into a manufacturing company, and I can kind of understand how they run based on how the floor looks, right? So if I
Mm-hmm.
walk into a company and I walk onto the manufacturing floor and I see, dim lighting, rags and, on the floor, little scrap pieces of metal on the floor, you kind of say, okay, you kind of get to feel like there's performance issues,
Yeah.
right? Production issues. If you walk next door to a company, another manufacturer, and you walk in, it's got high ceilings, it's well lit, there's lots of windows, everything is spot clean, everywhere you walk is clearly marked. You say these guys take a lot of pride in what they're doing. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the kind of thing you're saying. So, so I walk in one door and I say they got performance issues because they're not taking care of the basic stuff that
Yeah.
is important. And walk another one says they invested heavily in making sure they have a clean, spotless, well-run facility that's inviting not just to their vendors or customers, excuse me, but to their employees. They're happy to come to work,
100,
right?
100%, because that um, makes them more productive, engaged, motivated. And, in our world, when it comes to employee branding, it of course benefits the company, but it benefits the people too. And what the message it sends to, and we found this with every company that we've worked with, it says, hey, my company is investing in me and my success. Isn't that great? And plus, then you think about the younger generations too. They value continuous learning even more than some, others. And so when you show that you are investing, it helps that culture. When we go back to culture too, and that better sense of, belonging, and I want to be here. I'm proud of where I work. And that, who doesn't want to work with a company like
Yeah,
that?
it adds
Doesn't want to
value.
work at a company like that? And at the end of the day, who doesn't want to buy a company like that or invest in one?
Well, yeah, when you talk about, selling your business, right? You touched on it a couple different times in this conversation. You know, buyers will buy based on historic earnings, but they um, excuse me, they're going to pay based on historic earnings. They're going to buy based on future growth, and also the management team that's coming along with them. So if you don't invest in that, you're not sure what your people are thinking behind closed doors or in the parking lot, or what the conversations they're having. So the last thing you want to have is any kind of dissent, or somebody who's key to the future of the business, all of a sudden blindside you with I'm leaving, or I want X, Y, and Z to stay on. And all of a sudden you got to be, maneuvering around to satisfy this person in the 12th hour before the deal closes to make it happen. So highly stressful, anxious, where if you are investing heavily in this branding strategy you have, then it sounds from my perspective that, you kind of mitigate a lot of this risk when it comes to your team and employees moving it forward. And that kind of added value that you are bringing to the table through your consulting and interaction with business owners and their key peoples, to me sounds invaluable.
Absolutely. I mean, we've worked with a number of companies where, they know that their team isn't quite near where it needs to be. So they're investing beforehand, whether it's a year or 2 years out, doesn't, the exact time frame doesn't, but it's as you're thinking in your mind, okay, there's an exit in the near future. I've got to, get my house in order. And people are a huge part of that house. And it doesn't have to be, I think one of the misconceptions that people have when they do know a little bit about what we do is, oh, well, that's just for services firms. But it's not. It's for, like you mentioned, manufacturing. It's for any kind of firm, because people are at the core of any business, right? And so, and especially when you think about your leadership team, every company has leaders, but it's not limited to them. So it's not just for services firms. But when you think about that, you're anticipating, okay, I got to get my house in order and make sure everybody is looking good. Then you want to do it in advance. You don't want to do it when everybody's already looking under the hood, right? You want to do it well in advance. And we've had a couple companies where, we had one in particular, it was a tech firm, where the acquirer made a point of saying how sharp and together the leadership team, and sort of it was the next level down, also it was a sales and engineering team, how amazing they looked. They didn't have to tell them that. They didn't know that they worked with us. And so, and then obviously, the tech company told us.
Right.
But that was really, great to hear. And when we started with them, they weren't so together. They were really sharp people, but their pipeline wasn't exactly where it needed to be. The top talent, they were growing like crazy, and top talent wasn't so attracted to them because the way the leadership team and some others came across, and they had this aggressive growth strategy. They wanted to get to a certain place, as they were thinking about selling. And the founder really understood that I got to get my people in order. And, it's the employee branding. We also do executive coaching too with leadership teams to get them, but it's communicating better, making better decisions, solving problems together. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to communication.
That's the key. And the brand is not just you. It's not just your company. It's a holistic about everybody who's involved working for you.
Yeah.
This has been terrific. It's a fascinating subject matter. I'd love to have you come back for another session to talk maybe some examples, and I'd love to have the audience learn from you how you ended up got into this niche business you're in, and
sure.
if that works for you, that'd be great. So
that'd be great. Thanks.
So Alyssa of Point Road Group, it's been great having you here. We'll have you back again to talk a little bit more in depth about some specific examples and how you got into this business. Again, everybody, thank you for being with us today. My name is Keith D., president of Osage Advisors. Please feel free to subscribe if you like to our YouTube channel, The Ins and Outs of Selling a Business. If you have any questions, you can email me at kdee@osageadvisors.com or pick up the phone and give me a call at 860-767-3273, extension 1001. To learn more about Osage, please feel free to visit our website at osageadvisors.com. And thanks again for being with us, and have a great day.